Canadians aren't shy of the talent that we have in this country. Music artists range in this country like Shania Twain, the Guess Who, Bryan Adams, Rush. And you know what? Amongst some of those greatest groups and artists is a band called Sloan, which, just like the Tragically Hip, never seemed to find a big fan base outside of Canada. But that isn't due to a lack of an amazing discography. If anything, you should try to listen to this group. They are phenomenal. I'm going to be doing a worst to best albums countdown. And this was a very tricky one because, as I said, their discography is very, very amazing. And so we'll go through, start off with number 12. And that is Smeared. This album, I'm just not a big grunge fan. It didn't speak to me. Right? I am so glad they changed their sound, but this album still has some good tracks. Okay, the memorable track on this album would be "Underwhelmed," which has to be one of their best. Just phenomenal. The lyrics really make the song. She said I was funny. I say you was funny, or something like that. Great track. Number 12, Smeared. Number 11, Commonwealth. What I have found with Sloan's albums as of late is I felt like they kind of hit their peak, and their material feels a little old, a little dry, a little worn. I feel like they need to somehow rehash, rebrand, get something exciting to rekindle the artistry. I know that myself as a songwriter, there's certain things that you always go back to as a songwriter, and sometimes it's like, oh, that again. So as far as this album goes, it was kind of cool. I guess the idea was kind of like the Kiss solo albums, and so each member received their own side on this album, with Andrew only doing a single 20-minute song. But what I found with this album is I found that Jay's, which was the first side, that was the best part of the album. And I found that as the album went on, it kind of got worse and worse and worse. Not that the material wasn't, terrible or anything, but it's just, it didn't hold up to some of their other albums. So I was very disappointed with this album. And look at that. I didn't even write down which track to look out for. Really, it's either You've Got a Lot on Your Mind or We've Come This Far by Jay Ferguson. So it's an okay album. And I mean that song by Andrew, the 48 Portraits, if it was shorter, because it's like totally dragged out, it's going to Tarkus territory. But if it was a much shorter, concise song, I actually would have liked it a lot more. Hey, number 10, their album called 12. And once again, just like the Commonwealth album, I just felt like I've heard a lot of this before. It felt very tired. Right? There were some good songs on it, the best of which, in my opinion, was Right to Roam by Jay Ferguson. You're going to find that my favorite Sloan member is Jay. Not that the other members don't contribute, but I just feel like his pop sensibility is just phenomenal. He's a very unique member of the group. So yeah, Right to Roam is the song that I'd be looking out for on this album. Hey, so those three were very easy to decide, okay? It didn't take long to decide that. It also didn't take long to decide the top tier albums. But the albums in the center, it was kind of like, well, I just really don't know. And so this was, in a lot of ways, a lot of the albums that are kind of middle tier, they could probably be rearranged. And so don't take my list too literally, because I was fighting myself which ones should go where. So at number 9 is Parallel Play. And the track to look out for this one is Burn For It, Patrick's song. I think that one's just, I think it's better than the single that was released from this album, Believe in Me. The interesting thing about this one is you've got that Bob Dylan-esque song for Andrew, Down in the Basement. I feel like he does a really good Bob Dylan, and maybe he should be trying that a little bit more. I know in his earlier albums is where his voice sounded the best, and I don't know. I guess voices change, and well, I mean, some of some of his songs almost put some of the albums lower than they should be, but you'll see that. But yeah, I mean, a lot of really good songs for it on this album. Hey, number 8, Between Bridges. I feel like with the band, you know, they were kind of going up, 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 and I feel like they kind of stagnated just a little bit. This is really the last album, in my opinion, to kind of feature their classic sound, because they kind of had a sort of 90s take in some ways on the Beatle-esque sound. So, I mean, I had written down here Losing California as the track to really look out for. But to be perfectly honest, another track that is phenomenally amazing is the Marquee and the Moon. But it's just Losing California. It's one of their greatest pop songs. But the Marquee and the Moon, though, it's a song that kind of moves you. So, hey, number 7 is Action Packed. The interesting thing with this album is it's an album that I don't necessarily pull out as much. Right? I don't really think of it. It's same with actually Parallel Play, Between Bridges. Just naturally, I don't necessarily reach for them as often. When I listen to these tracks on here again, I really thought, hey, wow, this album's got a lot of really good songs. A lot of the songs that, you know, are really catchy, that you know, when you hear a song, you hear the first few minutes, and you're like, oh, yeah, that song speaks to me. And a lot of these songs speak to me, but I don't know, maybe it's just how they're produced. This is kind of their more power rock or power pop album, and I didn't necessarily like the production on it as I liked some of their other albums. For me, the standout track is Fade Away. You know, like, I don't know, I like those songs that just kind of reach and pull into your soul and speak to you, and that song Fade Away just kind of does that, like a lot of Jay's songs do for me. Okay, number 6, Pretty Together. This album would have been a lot higher on my list, except for some of those Andrew tracks. Some of them, I don't know, I just gotta skip it. I mean, I feel like it starts off really strong, you know, from If It Feels Good, Do It, through to Dreaming of You, but, oh, man, track 5 and track 6, holy cow, man, I don't know, Pick Up and Dial is just, I think I have to skip that every single time that comes on. But what I really love about this album, and I've heard from other Sloan fans that, hey, this album is overproduced, but in my mind, this is one of their prettiest albums. I really love the production on it. And for me, this album, everything in this album is going from tracks 10 through 13. Who You Talking To? I Love A Long Goodbye. Are You Giving Me Back My Love? And Your Dreams Have Come True. I feel like that's a perfect mini segment of their album. That's one of my favorite moments of the Sloan catalog. And really, if there was more like that, this would be a lot higher on my list. And for me, the standout track is Are You Giving Me Back My Love? One of those songs, once again, that just kind of reaches into your heart. You can really feel something that the band 10cc had talked about is they didn't necessarily take the first vocal take. They said that it doesn't get into the song until you can actually feel that vocal line. And Jay delivers a perfect, flawless performance on that song. Just fabulous. Okay, so this one, I would assume, would be probably number 1 on a lot of people's lists. But for me, I mean, it's a good album, don't get me wrong. But just doesn't speak to me like some of the albums do. And that's their second album, Twice Removed. Okay, so with this one, I listened through and, you know, songs like Pen Pals, Hate My Generation, People of the Sky, which People of the Sky is probably maybe the best vocal that Andrew delivers. Coax Me, Bells On, Loosens, Word Now, Shame, Shame, Deeper Than Beauty, Snowsuit Sound. I love that song. Before I Do, and I Can Feel It. It's a really good album. I mean, It's a little more raw than some of their later productions. And I mean, there's a charm of the rawness of the album. Personally, though, I would have liked to seen, you know, kind of the one chord to another or Navy blues production on this album. I would have really have liked that. But it's a good album, really good songs. Hey, number 4, Never Hear the End of It. Yeah, it's a double album, a lot better than Commonwealth. And the standout track on this one is Listen to the Radio. This is a missed opportunity by the band. I feel like that should have been the lead single off of this album. When I have played this song for people, young or old, makes them stop, makes them think, makes them go, whoa, what was that? And it's one of those songs where you feel like you've heard it before. And it's just perfect. You know, a song that makes you feel. You know what? I don't know if they recorded or if they just make a video, but they should strongly reconsider releasing that song as a single. I think that even though it's an old track, if they were trying to release it as a single, put some money on it, try to get it played on the radio, it's a song that I think that could have a second life. Other groups have had that situation. I mean, you got Styx with Lady, that was released and didn't become a hit till years later. And also, I believe Black Water by the Doobie Brothers, that was a B-side, and you just had a DJ who liked the song and became a hit. So I think that there's definitely a really good opportunity for Listen to the Radio to become a great song. And another song that I think is one of the best of Scott Murphy's would be The Fading to Obscurity, which I think if you listen to the expanded Navy Blues album, you know, I'm undecided if the evidence that I've provided, if I'm not off, but I think that was a song by Jay, if you listen to those some of those bonus tracks. But I mean, this album, it's got a lot of shorter songs. It does kind of the Abbey Road medley thing, which is just amazing. And like, there's a section of this album where it starts to feel, okay, you know, never hear the end of it. Okay, when's this going to end? But I just find that I'm always picking up this album again. And it comes to that argument again. Okay, so should the album have been just a single album? And you look at, for instance, the White Album. The White Album would have been a much stronger album than it was, except that it had tracks on it like Number 9. Ugh. So, but even with, you know, even though I feel like maybe it feels a little long, I just keep on going to this album. And so I love it. Okay, number 3 is One Chord to Another. Right? And so this album and another album are probably the most of the Beatlesque works of the band. It's just, I don't know. It's this would be the golden age of the group, really, when they really hit the nail on the head. They really found it. And the standout track for me is Autobiography. And I know that this album would probably be number 1 on a lot of people's lists as well. I don't know. It's funny because, like, I like the album a lot, but I find that I pull out 2 different albums more often than this album. And actually, to be perfectly honest, I think I might actually even listen to Never Hear the End of It more than I do One Chord to Another, which is kind of funny. I think maybe one of the things that gets me with this one is, you know, the Good in Everyone and Everything You've Done Wrong, which are really good songs. Don't get me wrong, they're really good songs, but it's kind of like when you overhear some songs, it's kind of, well, maybe I want to listen to something else. And they've got a lot of material, so you definitely can have choice. But the standout track on this would be probably Autobiography, although Junior Panthers is really good too. But Autobiography, I think, is a very fantastic song. To me, it's very Beatlesque, and it's refreshing hearing a group kind of dabble in that area, but still making it their own. It still has kind of like this 90s vibe to it. So number 3, One Chord to Another. All right, so when I became a fan of Sloan, I would have been in high school, and the album that would have come out, the first album that I had probably listened to all the way through was actually Sloan, the Double Cross. Right? And I feel like this album, they just nailed it. Right? I almost feel like with these albums that an alternative ranking could be done where it's, Jay's best albums, Andrew's best albums, Patrick's best albums, Scott's best albums, because every member of the group has certain albums where they're a lot stronger than the other members. And this album, I feel like they are all very equal. And don't get me wrong, I mean, in One Chord to Another, they're all pretty equal. They're all very strong. Never hear the end of it. Twice Removed. Okay, so they got a lot of albums where they're really strong. But to be this late in their catalog, because the Double Cross, Double X, this was their 20th anniversary. And I felt like they had just nailed it on the head. And this is partially why I was so disappointed with Commonwealth and 12, was because I just felt like Double Cross was such a phenomenal album. Going from Follow the Leader, The Answer Was You, to Unkind. Oh, man. I'm a sucker for those concept albums where songs interweave into each other, and the transition between The Answer Was You and Unkind was absolutely phenomenal. And, Follow the Leader too. Unkind is one of those tracks where if I play it for people who don't know the band, they like that song. It's a song that I think would be universally liked by people. It's very catchy. And so I couldn't really argue with putting Unkind as the song to really look forward to on this album. But, the other songs that I really like on this album would have to be Beverly Terrace, the disco song, do, 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 do. But I really like Your Daddy Will Do. More about, I think, the lyrics than anything else. And that's the thing is with other bands, like let's say like the Electric Orchestra, for instance, one of the main complaints about ELO is the fact that the lyrics aren't that great. I mean, the music is fantastic. I like the lyrics, but they don't really make you think per se. And Scott, well, actually, a lot of the lyrics on all of the material, they definitely have a lot of really good wordplay. But I really like some of the story songs, and Your Daddy Would Do, and actually, once again, going back to You Never Hear the End of It, Fading to Obscurity. Oh man, I don't know. It's kind of like the music's 50%. The meaning, the words, the message is 50%, and they just meld it really well. Scott, you do a really good job on that. Okay, so going to number 1, if you're a Sloan fan, you already know which album it is, if you haven't lost track, and that is Navy Blues. This album was just just amazing. It's got some horns, it's got some strings, which I really like. And I just feel like this was probably the most solid album from the group. Every single song is phenomenal. Andrew, I don't know, like... It feels like in the first few albums, his compositions were just amazing, and I'm not sure what happened after that. I think maybe some of it is maybe he's singing out of his range. I don't know if he lost some of his vocal ability, but he just seems to hit the nail on the head. I first heard this album. We were driving back from a scout camp, and my scout leader put this on, and it was like, holy cow, what is this? It was like almost like a angelic, not that they sound like angels, but it was almost like an angelic choir calling me home. It kind of felt like, why haven't I heard this before? This is amazing. To me, this album is very Beatles-esque. It's got a lot of those elements, like I had mentioned before, but wow. And I think that the standout track for me is "I Want to Thank You." Um, I'm really keen to those orchestral arrangements on albums. My favorite group is ELO, so naturally I swoon for that. Um, but yeah, that is my top 12 list of Sloan. And so just as a reminder, number 1 was Navy Blues. Number 2 was the Double Cross. Number 3 was One Chord to Another. Number 4 was Never Hear the End of It. Number 5, Twice Removed. Number 6, Pretty Together. Number 7, Action Packed. Number 8, Between Bridges, which received, I think, a Juno for album design. They've got some better looking albums than that. And actually, just as a side note, that's something that I kind of like about this group is that they're all equal members. Right? They all split the money 4 ways. And they always find a different way to position the band. And I think that that's really cool because it's not, hey, Scott or Patrick, because really they're the Lennon and McCartney of the band. But they give everyone an equal opportunity. Anyways, number 9, Parallel Play. Number 10, 12. Number 11, Commonwealth. And number 12, Smeared. So what did you think of my list? Do you agree? Probably not. We all have different music tastes. But I love this group. Probably the only album that I really don't really care for at all, besides a few tracks, would be Smeared. And I mean, Commonwealth and 12, I don't know. They're all right. I'm really hoping that what the group releases next, that they'll be able to refresh their sound a little bit. I think that what would be nice on their next album is to try to do a concept album. Right? Try to come up with a story maybe or an idea and collaborate with each other. It's one thing that I've really have noticed, especially when seeing the band play live, is Scott's really the middleman. He's the gel that makes everything work. He's singing backing vocals on Patrick's songs, and he's singing backing vocals on Jay's songs. He's singing backing vocals on Andrew's songs, but you don't necessarily see that cross follow through between the other members. And I was kind of surprised when seeing them play live that Jay wasn't singing backing vocals on Patrick's songs. So, but I really like this group. I love their discography. And don't get me wrong, these 2 albums, they still have good tracks. And I feel like these 2 albums is of where Jay really shines. I think that he comes off as the strongest. And as far as I'm concerned, if the other members were just as strong as he was on these albums, then they would have been much better albums. I don't know, I feel like Patrick, in a lot of ways, kind of led the group with a lot of their singles for the majority of their career. And I don't know, I just don't care too much for Patrick's songs. I mean, they're okay. I don't know, what was that? Keep Swinging Downtown was their single off of Commonwealth. It was okay. I think that Jay had maybe a song or 2 that could have been a better single myself. But that's my opinion. Like I said, what do you think of Sloan? Do you love them? What would be your top 10 countdown? And until we meet again and you get to see my list. All right. Thank you. Bye for now, eh?